Hey, y'all. I am here today with my daughter, Mara. Say hello, Mara.
Hi.
So this is a daddy-daughter top 10 review of, I think both of our favorite app.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So daddy-daughter top 10 of the Canon Plus app. Now, those of you who follow me know I read for Canon Press. I've been published by Canon Press. We like Canon Press and obviously the Canon app, and you're about to get the daddy-daughter top 10, but Canon Press is not a sponsor, and I have been in no way remunerated. Do you know that word?
No, yeah. I do not know that word.
I guess what it means. Canon's not giving me any money for this. We're just doing it because it really is like our favorite. I don't know if you talk to your friends about Canon Plus, but like I was traveling in Florida recently and telling the boys there, like, I mean, like if it's the one app that you're going to have in your family, like, you know, you pay for TV, you pay for all this stuff. So I pay for NBA and I pay for YouTube and I buy Amazon Prime. And then I have Canon Plus, which in the adult world, I think is a relatively low count of subscriptions. I don't know. But if there's going to be one, this would actually be the one. It's a vast library of all sorts of media, and it's getting even bigger. So we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
I bet you spend more time on the app than I do.
Probably.
Yeah. Like with what? Like, don't name any names because we're going to do our top 10, but what kind of thing? Because I think a lot of people think of it as an audiobook app, and that is kind of probably the main way I use it. But how about you?
I probably use it the most watching documentaries.
Okay.
So.
Documentaries, podcasts, whatnot. Okay, so here we go with our top 10. So why don't I'll give my 10th. We'll go down in order towards our favorites. I'll give my 10th, you give your 10th, and then with the 9th, you can go first, and then I'll go first. Okay. All right, so number 10 for me is a documentary. It is Sage Against the Machine, which is about George Gilder. And there's actually a very cool book by George Gilder as well, Men and Marriage, on the app. So I guess I'm kind of lumping these together, Men and Marriage, and then Sage Against the Machine. But it's about a guy who is a Christian and something of a pioneer and revolutionary in thinking and creation. So, have you actually ever watched?
I have, with you.
What a good dad I am. Okay, so that's my breaking into the top 10 list. What's your number 10?
Mine is the animated Tolkien.
Ooh, okay. So when you say animated Tolkien, what do you mean? And tell us why you like it.
Well, I mean, I like The Return of the King and The Hobbit. I probably like The Hobbit more, but The Return of the King is really fun too. I like it because it's a very fun and it's a lot easier to watch than the live action Tolkien because it's more fun and funny too.
Well, yeah, sometimes too funny though. Like the we were waiting the other day. We were watching The Return of the King, and you hadn't seen it before.
Yeah. And
I was telling you, there's a really goofy song coming. And yeah, where there's a whip, there's a way, which is very 70s. There's actually a dark history behind the production of those cartoons, especially The Return of the King. But when I was like 7 years old, I had a little record from this Return of the King that's on Canon, like a little LP thing. It did not have the goofy song though. I didn't even know that existed. No, it was good because it was full of these expressions that were straight and words that were straight from the books. And I loved the books. And and it had cool drawings from the cartoon. I didn't even know there was a cartoon, to be honest. My parents got me this thing.
You thought it was just like an
I thought it was drawings. Yeah, basically. Mm-hmm. It was very cool. So I get why you like these. They are pretty awesome. All right, number 9. You start us with number 9.
Mine is 9 Unlikely Tales by E. Nesbitt.
So I've never heard of this.
Yeah. It's probably one of the least popular ones. Like, it's not that well known.
Ooh, so it's like it's cool points for you. Because, like, it's like having, like,
so
knowing
hip.
the B-sides. Right, exactly. Yeah, you're so hip. So what kind of stories are they? Why are they so cool?
They're odd tales. They're like
Okay.
weird, and most of them have to do with kids finding like a world or something that's really weird, or like going on a road trip and something really weird happened.
Okay.
That was like magical.
That sounds like every good kid's story ever, but I guess these are a lot shorter.
Yeah, a lot shorter.
My ninth is actually a sermon series from like 20 years ago. Evangelical Feast Days. So I say sermon series. Some of my selections are going to be like things crammed together or collections or whatever. Some of what I put out there is my top 10. But yeah, so my number 9, Evangelical Feast Days. They're Doug Wilson sermons in which he goes through and explains why Easter matters, why Pentecost matters. Okay, so I got kind of lost there for a second about whose turn it was or whatever, Matt. But the way we're setting it up, the way we've done it is I give my 9th because she just gave her 9th, and now I give my 8th. She'll give her 8th. So, Doug Wilson again. Doug Wilson New Testament commentaries. So as audiobooks, they're available. I've read one of them. I think Pastor Doug read another. I think maybe our pastor Ben Zorns read another. I'm reading one right now in the studio for Canon. So there are going to be more. But he has these very easy to read, but significant and enriching commentaries for several books in the New Testament. And so I'm a fan of that whole little series. And the design on here, I'll show you. Let's see. The design on these is pretty cool.
That is cool.
So the man comes around, partakers of grace. I'm reading Diamonds in a Cardboard Box now. To the Church in Rome is another. All right, what's your 8th?
My 8th is the Notes from a Tilt-A-Whirl documentary.
Uh-huh. I might have that somewhere on my list. Okay. All right, tell us why this made your list.
It's just a really good documentary, and it's also nice because it's not super long. So, like, if you're just pondering life's mysteries, you can watch it very quickly.
Ooh, okay. So it's a ponderation of mysteries. Okay, so you say it's a really good documentary. That's pretty vague. Like, why is it good? Oh, and have you read the book?
No.
Okay, you have to read the book.
I started reading the book, and then I just forgot.
That's cool. You're not yet 12. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. I'll be 12 in like a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So why is it good? Do you know what the transcendentals are?
I don't know what that means.
So transcendental means that it is through to a higher thing. But the transcendentals are truth, beauty, and goodness.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
We could almost say that this is transcendental. I'll apply that to this when we get to it on my list.
Yeah. So it's kind of like just talking about the world, pretty much, and like the beauty of it, and how it's main transcendental. Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the main transcendental for Notes is beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and kind of just how all the little details of how he made life.
Yeah. So I describe the book as an aesthetic apologetic. So aesthetics is the study of beauty, right? So, yeah. Cool. Yeah. All right. So now you do your number 7, right?
Yeah. My 7th is Soup Night Slapdashery.
I don't even know what that is.
So
Okay, so actually, before you describe it, that's how big this app is, y'all. I mean, it's not yet the library at the end of the world or any creation of Borges or anything. Like, it's, but it's big and it's growing. So soup slapdashery,
no,
you say?
Soup Night Slapdashery.
Okay, go on.
So you know how in NSA they have like soup nights on Tuesdays?
Yes.
So Mrs. Merkel does the Malta soup night, and it's all about budgets, groceries, seating, how you would set the table, like what supplies you would need for feeding like 100 people or so.
Is it a
It's like
book?
It's like series of episodes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually really cool.
A video.
Yeah, but it's like there are a couple of episodes.
That's
But,
cool. We
yeah.
should look it up here. Soup.
Right there.
There it is. And a huge pot.
Yeah, it's like a joke. She has a ginormous pot.
Nice. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
A practical guide to big hospitality.
Mm.
So does this mean I can ask you to make an enormous pot of soup for 73 people now?
You would have to buy all the ingredients, but sure.
Okay. Cool. I like it. Okay. Okay.
Also, one reason I like it is because in the conclusion, my sister is in it. Because she goes to the Malta Soup Nights. So you can see a little brief glimpse of her.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so my number 7 is an entire collection of old audio. So I used to subscribe to Word MP3. Let's see here. Word MP3. There we are. So you can see a bunch of great names on here. Albert Moeller, Ralph Smith, Brian Phillips. I actually don't know who that is. Mark Horn, John Frame, etc. So there's a lot. It's a huge library. I mean, it was a thing unto itself 10, 15, 20 years ago. Word MP3. So I definitely have some things I'm not at all interested in. But then there's this stuff that I absolutely love. And I know like more content that I'm going to get to enjoy. So like authors that I appreciate and speakers that I appreciate being on here include, Ralph Smith is definitely one. James Jordan has a bunch of great stuff. And James Jordan is not always the most compelling rhetor, but his ideas are amazing. Lightheart is on there. He's got a bunch of stuff on here. I love Lightheart stuff. Mm-hmm. So the Word MP3 collection I endorse to you. Look at all that Lightheart stuff, huh?
I know. Very much you.
George Grant, yeah.
Chesterton.
Well, stuff about Chesterton.
Yeah,
exactly. Stuff about Kuiper. Yeah, so there are a bunch of biographies that George Grant has, but yeah, I mean the Lightheart stuff is really where it's at for me. Anyway, so that's my number 7, I think it is. Yeah, 7. The Word MP3 collection. My number 6 is the first just straight up book. Book and audiobook. And I discovered this thing recently because I read the audiobook for it. And this actually might say how long it is. It's short.
That is pretty short.
It's a tiny little book. So Clean Water, Red Wine, Broken Bread. I loved it so much when I read it, and I read it for the first time into the audio booth, that I had it translated into Portuguese for the ministry we have to Brazil. It is, so it's one of the things I've been talking about a little bit lately, is how cool Doug Wilson is in a way that a lot of people don't know. Because it's kind of, I don't know how much you think about this, but it's kind of weird to have a famous pastor.
It is kind of weird.
Yeah. But then there are people who like know about him and read all his stuff or whatever, who live on the other side of the country, people who like him, who don't like him. But he's just a cool dude and kind of a sweetheart sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there are a lot of, if you start getting into the deeper stuff and not the best sellers, I think you start to see that even more because people have all these ideas about what he's like. And you see that, one of the ways you see that in this book, it's just a very simple evangelical presentation of what the Christian faith is. What it takes to become a Christian and what the Christian life looks like in the simplest of terms. And it's an extremely kind book that goes to the non-Christian. So it assumes someone who is legitimately curious, right? It's not trying to convince someone who's hostile or defeat someone who's hostile. In a debate, that would be just. But it's assuming that there's a person who's genuinely interested. But is not yet a Christian. And it's straight up just beautiful. I loved reading it. Brought tears to my eyes more than once in the old audio booth, which is why I had to translate it into Portuguese. So anyway, it's there. It's super short, less than an hour, I think. So it's weird for me to include it after including a whole library of MP3s, but that's my number 6. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is Come and See.
And I saw. Sorry. Sorry.
What?
That's,
I'm so confused.
It's so that when the man comes around, which is the Johnny Cash song, that commentary took its name from, has that. It's a line from Revelation. Anyway, you're not talking about that.
Yeah, this is a documentary, and it's named after when Jesus said, "Come and see," to the disciples.
Hey, wait! I'm picking up a theme here.
For your
Hospitality.
Hospitality, and Rebecca Merkel.
I am a huge fan. I'm a big fan of Rebecca Merkel. Mom knows it too.
Okay. Yeah, actually, I bet that later on in the list is going to be more Rebecca Merkel. You don't have to say like specifically. Maybe. Okay, so this is Come and See. Tips for hospitality and Sabbath dinners. Okay, so there are people who go onto Instagram or whatever. I'm not sure if you've ever been onto Instagram. You've probably seen your siblings.
Well, Mom sends me cat videos through Instagram.
I'm definitely keeping that in this video. But like, there are people going to Instagram or other platforms like that, and they like pictures of food, and they watch people make recipes, and they fantasize about making the recipes. And I'm not saying that in some kind of like it's just a fantasy way. They often then turn around and like they'll make something, but they definitely watch way more things than they actually make. They're getting ideas and inspiration, blah blah. I feel like this is what's happening with you and the hospitality stuff.
Kinda, yeah. I like kind of just gathering information. This especially is a bunch of hot tips from Mrs. Jankovic.
Hot tips.
Yeah.
Not just tips, like spicy tips. Sorry, go on.
Mrs. Merkel and Mrs. Wilson, and it's a lot from Nancy Wilson. She's just explaining and it's also just how to think about hospitality, because they had a conversation where it's women sometimes think of it as a duty, and they think that duty is a bad thing.
Right. Because sometimes duties are glad duties, like raising a daughter. Go on. So I'm realizing it's just one thing. It's like one.
Yeah, it's a documentary.
Okay, yeah. All right. So it's 50 minutes. Boom.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's something cool, like a tip or an idea or whatever that you learned from this?
There are a lot of things. One of them was Nancy Wilson said to pretty much if you're having a big hangover, just do things like buffets and do things that the kids like, not super fancy things that no one will really appreciate.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that.
Like soup.
Yeah, and also Mrs. Rebecca Merkel, which is actually on the screen right now, is where she's explaining how people. If you give them a nice invitation, they will probably be more interested in coming into the event. Yeah. And so just basic things like that, where it's just
as opposed to
nice atmosphere.
Oh, just come over in your flip-flops, it's fine. Yeah. There's a place for that, but that creates a different reaction.
Yeah, and it's also they talked a lot about just the idea of duty. What is duty really? It's
good to be thoughtful about these things. Yeah. I mean, you should do everything with thoughtfulness. Whether you're doing it low or high, it should be that way on purpose, because that's the best effect for it. So that's cool that you're getting to learn about these things. I have a book recommendation for you, which has nothing to do with the app. It's a family favorite. We may or may not have a copy because it's one of those books that we're constantly giving away and not necessarily getting back. But The Supper of the Lamb by Francis Farrar Capon. I've read bits to you before about how to cut an onion. And it's pages and pages.
I remember that. Yeah. That was very interesting.
So the whole book is fun because the idea of it it gets all philosophical and fun and stuff, kind of like Notes from a Tilted World.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea, the structure of it is you have one lamb and a week of meals. So it's fun.
Yeah. Okay, my number 5 is the radio dramas.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just listened to a short story by C.R. Wiley, and I hope there will be a lot more of, which is new but kind of read like a radio drama. Are you telling me there are old shows, radio shows from the 40s on this app?
No, it's an NSA thing.
Oh.
NSA students
Okay.
like play parts in them. Like this one is one that's not one of my favorite. My favorite one is the Light Princess.
Oh.
And
Okay. So what's the best way to find these?
go
Just
on to
New St.
kids,
Andrews
if you-
College,
if you
maybe?
Go on kids.
Oh, there's a whole kids. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so people get to learn about the app here. There's a whole kids thing. All right. Hey, Cannonball kids. All right. So this is your world.
Yeah. Here.
All right. Yeah.
Here we go. These are them.
Yeah, you were
So,
listening to The
Treasure-
Light Princess the other day.
Yeah, I finished it. And then the Treasure Island is also one of my favorites. So Thumbelina, Treasure Island, and Light Princess are my favorite ones, probably.
So you've listened to these again and again.
Yeah, multiple
Okay.
times. It's a lot of fun, and Joshua Egrin plays all of them, and he's so fun to listen to because he's so expressive in his voice.
I might have to listen to some of them. We're both
Yeah.
huge Joshua Edgren fans.
Treasure Island, he's in it a lot, but he's less expressive because he's like the narrator.
Yeah.
Light Princess, he's the king, and he's hilarious, so you should listen to
Really?
Light Princess. He's hilarious.
Okay, so wait, he only plays parts in these. People play parts.
Yeah.
It's a radio drama. It's a play, like
Yeah.
a play. Oh.
So it's an
okay, I'm
audio
getting a clear
play.
picture, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the old radio dramas from the 40s or whatever.
I
Like
don't-
people would actually like, there'd be a sound effects guy.
There is sound effects in this
That's
too.
fun.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah, and it's like you can pick out like I know that person that's playing that part. Like some of the Rauks, you can hear the Rauks in there.
Oh, that's
too.
cool.
Yeah,
The Rauks are fun.
they are fun.
They have a flair for the dramatic.
Yeah, they're pretty expressive.
Oh wow, they have the Action Bible here.
Yeah, I haven't looked at that yet.
It's pretty good. We own one of those.
We own the Old Testament and New Testament one.
Uh-huh.
I think they separated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that was your number 5, the radio dramas.
Uh-huh.
Okay. My number 5 is a book, just a single book. The Church Impotent, The Feminization of Christianity by Leon J. Podles. I read this book, so it was out of print until Canon went and found it, printed it, and recorded the audio. And I think it was actually Mr. Edgren who got to read this one. This is one of the titles I was upset that I didn't get to read. I read this back in like around the year 2000. And it was incredible. Like, shaped a lot of my awareness, at least, of not thinking. Because it's about how the Western church as a whole, and he's Catholic, so he includes the Roman Catholic Church in this, but how the Western church as a whole has become all womanly and soft. And one of the things that, besides being a great book, and I'm not going to get into all the ideas of it, you should listen to it. It also symbolizes to me how Canon has lately gone after a couple of things, like the George Gilder thing, that like books that are really important and they don't want to die, they want to give new life to, that are out of print. They're not classics that they can just print without permission. They have to go get the rights. One book I hope they get is E. Michael Jones' Living Spaces, which is a book about architecture. Anyway, so they're going and reviving old titles, which are really important Christian titles, and this is one of them. I highly recommend it to everyone. That was my number 5, I think. Is that where we are?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so what's your number 5?
Oh wait, no, I already did my number 5.
Oh, okay, so I do my number 4.
I did my 6 and then 5 and then 2.
Okay. All right, so my number 4 is the Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl documentary. It's the same reasons that Mara laid out. It's a beautiful rendition of the book, and the book is one of my favorites. So, as I said, it's an apologetic from beauty, and I would put it right up there with, and I'm hesitant to say this because I'm going to compare it to such a classic that people might suspect that my perspective is a little warped. But I don't think so. They can judge for themselves once they read it. Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl is as big, as thought-shaping as G.K. Chesterton's Orthodoxy, which is one of the foundational books of sweetness.
It is, very much so.
No, you haven't read it yet.
No, but
Ward, you know it is.
Ward has been reading it, and we talk about it a lot.
Yeah. So soon, whenever actually you are of an age where you can begin to approach it. Anyway, so Notes from the Tilt-A-Whirl is fantastic. This documentary is a lot of fun. And like most of the Canon documentaries, it comes in under an hour.
Yep.
Okay. So that's my number 4. Wait, so now you do number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're doing a better job of keeping track than I am. Okay, go ahead.
My number 4 is the Green Ember series.
Ooh.
That one.
Is that the one with the rabbits?
Really big. Yeah, that one's huge. It's like.
What do you mean huge? Huge for you or huge?
It's very popular, and everybody knows about it.
Oh, yes, I see that.
Yeah, Ember's End is probably my favorite out of them. It's pretty intense.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So tell us about it.
So I don't think I've finished the second series of this, but Green Ember is very, like, it's kind of cute, but also very serious, kind of.
Okay.
In the beginning, it's very cute, and then it gets pretty serious.
That sounds exactly like life. In the beginning, it's kind of cute. Go ahead.
So it's about rabbits, a sister and a brother, and they, like, I'm trying not to give any spoilers and talk about it at the same time.
So this is them, the sister and the brother?
Yeah, that's Heather and that's Pickett.
Oh, good rabbit names.
Mm-hmm. And then they end up going on, like people attack their house, and then their parents get kidnapped, and then they go on this whole adventure trying to rescue them, and in the end, they have to rescue everybody from it, and then they get help from people, and it's just, like, so much.
So, do you know what's
die.
happening here in this moment? Because she looks pretty concerned.
No, I forget what happened.
I mean,
exactly.
I am sure an adventure story.
Actually, yes. That is when, well, it's really intense. I will spoil a lot, so I can't tell. But also, my favorite character dies in a very tragic way, and he sacrifices himself, and I sobbed for days.
I remember that.
You remember? Seriously?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, I was so heartbroken when he died.
Yes, that we, mom and dad discussed such things. Our daughter is a wreck upstairs. How would you compare this to, what's that Nuts and Berries animals book?
Redwall?
Martin.
Redwall?
Redwall. Yes, man, it's been 25 years for me. I don't really like Redwall that much, to be honest.
I am also kind of on that side. Ward loved it, and I thought it was fun and cute, but this is way better in my opinion.
Okay, so way better. There's a...
It depends on if you are loyal to Redwall, too.
Sure. Well,
I'm not really
how
loyal.
would you compare them? Like, how is it different from Redwall?
It's more... Well, Green Ember is... It's more... Like, so this is by the same author that did Jack Zulu, which I was talking about. Where
is Jack Zulu on your list?
No.
Okay.
Because I'm not done with it yet. So I can't really quite... Okay. But it's like it's very complicated, but it goes together very nicely.
Okay.
So it's like... Redwall is kind of...
It's kind of episodic.
The villains are kind of, like, goofy. And, like, you can easily make fun of them. The villains in this are actual serious villains that can easily, like...
Redwall wouldn't have you crying in your room for days.
Yeah. Redwall is more goofy, and it's also a little bit more homey.
Yeah, that's true. It's cozy.
And this is, like, it's kind of like a book that you can... go by the fire and sip your cup of tea while you read.
I mean, just a glance at this.
That is one of the very serious.
Well, yeah. This ain't cozy.
No, it's not. That book was the one where the guy died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the one that was sad.
Don't cry. Sorry. It's okay if you do. All right. You're doing 3 next, right?
Did you do your 3? Wait.
Nope.
Okay, yeah, it's me. Okay, my 3rd is The Tom Sawyer Show.
The Tom Sawyer Show.
Yep,
There's no show
cartoon.
called The Tom Sawyer Show.
Well, it's like the event.
Like there's a cartoon series. Yeah, actually, I knew that.
Yeah, it's really fun and very goofy.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's one of the it seems like Canon's picked up a bunch of old Japanese cartoons.
They've got a lot. Yeah, like they have Sherlock Holmes, Tintin. They got Tintin recently. Which
that is a super that kid falling on his face. That's a super
That's
Japanese image. Okay, so this is good, huh?
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's just him getting into a bunch of trouble, and then eventually he gets like stranded on an island, and it's like with friends, and it's.
You haven't read the books, have you?
No, I've tried, but I can't like do it because it's. Oh wait, they got season. Oh yeah, I have read it. Yeah. Okay, but they I have trouble reading the ones because it's such old language, kind of where I'm kind of like I don't understand what you're talking about. Sort of.
You probably want to overcome that, but maybe not with Tom Sawyer, because I'll say something else that will upset the masses and make them question my judgment. Mark Twain is overrated. You're not able to comment on that. I'm just saying that is my opinion. Okay, my number 3 is also a show, but a different sort of show. It's The Wade Show with Wade. So these are just honestly just short videos. They are also available on YouTube, but I watch pretty much every one, and they're a lot of fun. He's funny, and he's a good writer. Mm-hmm. I think he writes them on his own.
The only problem is he sits on the throne of lies. He's not actually in the closet.
Yes. Yeah. Did I?
That made me really sad. They just
when you just it was the election stream.
Yeah. And one guy posted, "You sit on the throne of lies."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, because it kind of looks like he's in a closet. Turns out he was never in a closet at all.
I actually thought he was like in his house in a closet.
Oh yeah.
And then he was actually in like a huge studio. I was like, ah.
Yeah, but he makes it look. Yeah, he makes it look that way on purpose. You know, I knew he was at Canon, but he's actually in like the full studio. Throne of Lies. That's going to be our takeaway. Maybe Wade will watch this and he'll realize that that's our takeaway. Yeah, we'll rank you number 3, but Throne of Lies. Okay, my number 2 is it's not a trilogy. It's 3 books by Lightheart. I'm going to look them up here.
Does that really count as one category?
Well, they're kind of. Let's see here. Lightheart is too big of a category to search audiobooks. Yeah, okay. Okay, so he has 3 books on literature that, honestly, reading these 3 books will give you a pretty fulsome education, with then reading what they're about, of course. But there's Heroes of the City of Men, and I read all 3 for Canon, so all 3 are in my voice, which is fun. But they were already favorites of mine. So Heroes of the City of Men is about pagan, pre-Christian Western literature, particularly the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid, but also talks about, like theogony and all talks about several plays, Aeschylus. It's fantastic because he contrasts it with Christian modes of thought and brings out the attitudes that pagans would have had that are maybe things we don't really see. Ascent to Love is specifically about the Divine Comedy, which is Dante, Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso. And then Deep Comedy, which is here a couple rows down, talks a lot about Shakespeare, and is about how the world ultimately is a glad story. And Lightheart wants us to define comedy as something that has a happy ending, not necessarily something in which bad things never happen. And so like the whole world, in a sense, is a comedy, as opposed to a tragedy.
That's very deep.
It is very deep. It's a book's worth of deep and more.
That's why it's called The Deep Comedy.
Deep Comedy. Boom. So that's my number 2. What's your... wait. Yeah, now you do your number 2, right? Yep.
My number 2 is The Sinking City by Christine Cohen.
Ooh, okay.
I remember getting The Winter King signed by her, our copy of it, and I told her my favorite one of her books was definitely The Sinking City, and she said that was her favorite too.
Oh!
But most
secret knowledge being
but
dropped.
most people's favorite one is The Winter King.
Okay.
So The Winter King is good, but I like this better.
Is it a series or they stand alone?
They're single books.
Yeah, I guess like Venice does not seem like a setting for The Winter King.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like it has a very slight tinge of romance,
A fully appropriate tinge of romance
Yeah.
for the 11-year-old reader.
Just a tiny bit. But they get engaged in the end, so it's okay. Sorry, spoiler
romance
alert.
is
spoiler
okay.
alert. And it's like she has to fake her death to get away from monsters who are trying to kidnap her
Dun dun.
so that she can be the mother of their new race.
There aren't monsters in Venice.
It's a fiction novel, Dad. It's fiction.
Join me in fiction.
But they live in the bottom of the
Deep Blue Sea?
well, yeah. But in Venice.
Yeah. Okay,
so,
that's pretty cool.
So they can and so she's a patrician's daughter. That took me so long to say. So they wanted noble blood so that she could be the mother of their new race, and and then she fakes her death and pretends to be a boy so that they don't recognize her. And then she has to get a job with a magician, and it's like really intense. I've listened to it a lot of times.
Yes. Well, I can tell you've listened to it repeatedly because the audio shows that it's near the beginning, but clearly you've been through this several times.
Actually, one of my friends was like, "Oh, I just started Sinking City with my book club. We're like in chapter 2." I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
you're in something big."
Shh. Okay. All right. What's your number 1?
My number 1 is the Even Exile documentary.
Oh, yeah, that is your number 1.
It is. I've watched it like 50 times.
Yeah. There's an Even Exile page. Oh, yeah. You've recently finished watching it because there it is at the end.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So tell us about this thing.
It's about feminism and it's
called Even Exile: The Restoration of Femininity. Yeah. So go on.
And it's about how you can fight femininity and about femininity, and then it's also about the kind of women you should try to be. It talks a lot about the Proverbs 31 women, and it also talks about how we are homemakers and how we always women think that God is putting us in somewhere in the corner and being like, okay, now you can feel special while all the men go off and do something do something actually special.
Oh yeah.
And then he's being all condescending.
Mm-hmm.
And she talks about how why would the last creature that God made be useless? Why would he do that?
You know, one of the things that Lightheart talks about and develops quite well in Deep Comedy is rejecting the old pagan idea that the later something comes along, the worse it is. Like the farther from God it is. The Christian idea, if anything, is flipped. The next thing is the better thing. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that, that men live sacrificially for their families, and if anything, the men orbit the women.
Mm-hmm. She was actually talking about this, where we often women think that it's like man is the glory of God and woman is the glory of man, so we think of it as a little ranking.
Right.
But she says that what the Holy of Holies is not less holy, and if more, it's more holy. And as you get closer to the Holy of Holies, it becomes more holy. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of like that. We are the glory of the glory.
Right. Yeah. And actually, that's how Hebrew augments itself, makes itself more. And that's not the only language that does it. Even in the creeds, when we say that Jesus is very God of very God, it's not like, he's like, no, really, he's a really good imitation of God. No, he's not just, it's not just that he's God, but more. He's very God, a very God.
Yeah, she also talks a lot about like the like who were the biggest feminists. Like she said that the real feminist was Mary Wollstonecraft. Terrible, terrible, terrible person.
Yes.
She's like, she had a very messed up life.
And then
too.
her connection with the Shelleys.
Yeah.
Which I know, so I've seen this. This is very good.
Yeah, Mary Shelley, her daughter, wrote Frankenstein and also had a terrible life.
Yes. Her husband was one of the worst human beings ever.
Yeah, and it also talks about Margaret Sanger.
Yeah, yeah. At some point, you're going to have to read the book.
I know.
Yeah. It's okay. You're 11. And then my number one. My number one is a single book. So this is more a Canon Press than a Canon Plus thing. But of all the Canon Press books that have been put out, this is probably the one that most influenced me. Angels in the Architecture, a Protestant vision for Middle-earth. Another one that I didn't get to read. So it's someone else's voice. I think it actually may be Pastor Zorn's voice on there. Anyway, it starts off with this amazing poem by an old Irish Christian that was originally written in Latin, comparing the victory of Jesus with the shadowy victories of old pagan heroes. And then it just goes on from there. And really does a great job of showing that Reformed Christians are living out and ought to be living out high medieval Christendom, right? Like the Protestant vision for Middle-earth. The idea is that, because one of the things that has happened since the Reformation and then following that, the unchristian Enlightenment, was that Christians started living all in their heads and stopped building churches and stopped writing poems and all the good stuff. So this is another aesthetic thing to be honest. I think that's a big thing for our family, is approaching the transcendentals through the lens of beauty first.
Yeah, we do talk a lot about truth, beauty, and goodness, but I've never really understood the word transcendental, which is weird, since we talk so much about truth, beauty, and goodness.
So if it's transcendental, it goes through to the other side. And I could start singing a classic rock song about breaking through to the other side, but I'm not going to. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so that's the Canon Plus app for us. Those were our top 10. We're obviously big fans, and I hopefully through this, getting to see on the screen some of the stuff, you get some idea of how enormous the collection is and how you can treat it like an audio library or like a kid's cartoon platform, or it's got a whole lot of different kind of stuff on it. It's
great because like if you have a 6-year-old or something, you can just let them just scroll and do whatever you want, whatever they really want on it, and it won't be.
So you'd let your 6-year-old listen to The Church Impotent?
Well, if she wants to.
So, as far as our 11-year-old goes, this actually is the only app she's allowed to use, like, unsupervised. She can watch, listen, whatever, to anything on this platform without consulting with us. Just so you get some idea of the degree to which our family trusts this app. Any final words?
Nope.
Good job, Canon. All right, so long, everyone. The peace of Christ be upon you.
What day is it today? Remind me.
It's Sunday, Mr. Pinch.
Sunday. And what do we do on a Sunday morning, wherever we happen to be? We go to church, you bloody heathen!